And joining us now to discuss the legal reforms is Adam Scott Bellos, host of JNS's Wine with Adam and founder and CEO of the Israel Innovation Fund. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Always great to have you on. So, the coalition really stretching out its hand with the delay of the legislation and the softening of the, Judicial Selection Committee bill. What's behind this move?
Of at least offering more amendments or reforms to what they've originally proposed. I don't think it's a move. I think it's what they intended to do the entire time. I think that anybody that thinks that Netanyahu or the government would actually think they would get 100% of everything that they put on the table from the start of this entire balagan, so to speak, is not one that is a reader of political landscapes. If you go into any negotiation or you propose any type of thing that you know something's going to get chipped away at, you obviously ask for more than what you actually want. So I do believe this was somewhat part of the plan. If it wasn't part of the plan, then it's clearly just a reaction to what's going on. And let's face it, a very large percentage of this country that could almost be called the majority are against the full-blown reforms that the government has proposed. But one could not argue that for the last 20 years, from far right to far left, people have been calling for the reformation of our Supreme Court.
Absolutely. And so, how do you explain that after weeks of protests, the opposition, and a softened bill is being presented now, the opposition still rejecting it?
Okay, so I actually think that's a really good question. And I think we have to go back to the very beginning of this. I love when Ron Dermer says my history goes back farther than breakfast this morning. It's like one of my favorite quotes of Minister Dermer. But in the very beginning of this, Lapid rejected everything outright. Like Netanyahu even came and said, let's meet and discuss this so it doesn't turn into a crazy situation. Lapid played politics, okay? Netanyahu and the government responded with that exact same form of politics. No, we're not going to meet. Every single time it went back and forth, it was no, 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 no. President Herzog recently, released a whole plan that Sharansky came out and supported. He said, it's not perfect, but I'll support it. And Netanyahu rejected it, okay? Then immediately within the last week, I mean, it's been a response, it's been one side then the other, one side then the other the entire time. So again, I think this is politics at its finest.
Mm-hmm. And, look, as you mentioned, the opposition has long agreed that some kind of reform is necessary. Mm-hmm. The opposition, or the coalition, again, sort of moving more towards, you mentioned President Herzog's compromise, taking a step in that direction. The opposition, though, still refusing to negotiate, to even come to the table. So how do you see this unfolding?
Listen, I think it's going to come down to President Herzog putting the parties together. That's kind of the role that he has been carving out for himself in this position. It could be the moment that he's kind of waited for his whole career. People are really putting him on a pedestal right now in terms of the guts that he has had to kind of take a more active role in the political system, which is not usually the role of the president.
The coalition, though, saying that the proposal that he presented was very one-sided, that it was mainly based on the opposition demands.
But they used the term one-sided in the fact that it didn't necessarily give them what they wanted, but that's what they came out with earlier today. And I also found it very interesting that one of the members of Likud came out against the new amendments that Simcha Rothman put in place. Okay, because she said, if this is about anything, it's about control of the judges and the ability to appoint the judges. And at the end of the day, if the members of Likud do not understand that no democracy should ever have one party picking judges or a majority government of only 61 picking judges, then I don't think that those members of parliament truly understand the democracy that they're in and the way democracy is supposed to work. And again, the Supreme Court should not be able to take out a sitting minister just because they don't like them. They shouldn't be able to overreach and threaten the democracy that they're in as well. So, there are two sides to the coin with this issue. People have been politicizing it quite well, and we've seen extremes on both sides emerge. I was interviewing somebody yesterday, and they tried to break it down to me as, well, I see it as religious people are on one side and secular people on another. And I said, that is exactly the opposite of what this situation is. So you can see how this is so tense. It's dividing the entire country, but miscommunication and misrepresentation of not only the amendments themselves, the situation itself, the protests themselves are really fueling fire of extremism on both sides, in my opinion.
We'll, of course, follow. Adam, thank you so much for taking the time to
Thank you
speak with
for
us
having me.
today.